All right, guys. This is the Seven Stroke Guru, and this is the very first album review on my brand new YouTube channel, Seven Stroke Guru Review. And the album I'm going to be reviewing for you today is Celebrate Mistakes by Number One Gun. This album came out in 2003 on Salvage Records. They would later go on to be signed by Tooth and Nail on their next album. So some of my favorite tracks from this album are Starting Line, Celebrate Mistakes, You Fail Sometimes, On, Invest in You, Hear This, and Get Up the Way I Feel Sometimes. That's quite a few tracks that I consider my favorite. I really love this album. I love this band. Well, there's a lot of reasons I like this album and this band, but the drummer really stands out to me. The drumming is great. It's a very decently busy, syncopated, hardcore style of drumming. This stands out on tracks such as You Fail Sometimes. Got a very nice syncopated groove. And then you have tracks like On, where the groove isn't especially complex, but there's just nice details and things added on the hi-hat to kind of spice up the groove, even though it's kind of your standard pop punk kind of backbeat. He's got some nice little strategic hi-hat openings and cool fills. There's a nice measure added for a fill break. Very nice writing in these songs. In the song Get Up the Way You Feel Sometimes, which I would definitely consider the strongest track drumming wise on the album, they threw in a measure of 15/16 right before the chorus, right before the bridge. It's a measure where there's not really anything happening. It's a measure of rest. It took me a while to pick it out. I'm a drummer, so the only reason I figured it out is because I was transcribing the song to learn it. Just really cool stuff, man. They got really nice, sophisticated orchestrations that are very subtle that you might not really pick up on unless you're trying to learn one of their songs. So the guitars are definitely nice. I don't think there's anything especially flashy or stand out about the guitars, but you know, they have some pretty harmonics used on the title track, Celebrate Mistakes. I really like the progression on Hear This. Just really nice, uplifting, basically pretty guitars. You know, not reinventing the wheel or anything. The vocals certainly aren't for everyone. I can see this from reading people's comments on the album and reviews from old, early 2000s punk review websites. The majority of people I see reviews and comments from seem to think that their follow-up record, Promises for the Imperfect, is an overall better release to this album. And that was their debut on Tooth and Nail Records. I personally disagree. I like all of their albums. This one definitely holds a special place in my heart. I'm a very nostalgia-centered guy, you know. A lot of the reason I love this kind of music so much, whatever you want to call it, post-hardcore, emo. I like the early 2000s brand, which a lot of people would try to say isn't as legit as, say, bands like, I don't know, Mineral, Sunny Day Real Estate, Penfold, Christie Front Drive. I like both. I like the early 2000s, arguably knockoff brand, and I like the original, pure, true emo. That's something I'm going to have to cover in a different video as far as what's considered true emo and what isn't. But, yeah, you know, these vocals are definitely not for everyone. I enjoy them. I don't remember exactly when I discovered this band. I know it was in high school, so anywhere between 09 and 05. But I had allegedly downloaded a few songs from this album, including Starting Line, You Fail Sometimes, and Get Up the Way I Feel Sometimes. The only song I had from their follow-up album was We Are. This album is great for anyone who enjoyed the early 2000s emo sound, or post-hardcore, whatever you want to call it, as I earlier addressed. You know, some people wanted to say that this band was generic. I definitely don't see it, and some of the things that make it stand out to me are the uplifting, positive lyrics. The drumming is definitely well above average. some good song compositions and creative orchestrations. I don't think it's generic at all. I think this band kind of got a bad rap, or more than anything, they're just very underrated and they deserve quite a bit more attention. So, they're a Christian band. Obviously, that isn't going to be everyone's thing, but the funny thing about that is back in high school, I really didn't even notice. I wasn't really ever a lyrics kind of guy, though I'm getting way more into lyrics now. If you are a Christian, then you are even more likely to enjoy this band. The lyrical theme in the album revolves around failing over and over again and getting back up, learning from your mistakes, and you guessed it, having faith in Jesus Christ that he will guide you through the entire process. Brushing over some of the specifics, we can take a look at the lyrics and starting line, where the theme is pretty self-evident in the title. It's the first track of the song, but it's also regards around being right at the beginning of something new. I've always appreciated the lyrics in the song Celebrate Mistakes, where it says, "Could it be so bad to take all these dreams that I had and use them for your glory?" Then we can take a look at You Fail Sometimes. This was the song that got me into this band, for sure. This was the first track that I heard from them that I really enjoyed and I found very catchy. The concept is pretty straightforward there. It's good to know that you fail sometimes, you try to see, but you're right offline. So this is where I get just a tad bit critical, would be over the lyrics. The lyrics on this album aren't anything mind-blowing or mind-boggling. Like I said, I'm not really a lyrics kind of guy. I really like the way the music sounds. I really like the way the guy's voice sounds. The lyrics are just relevant enough to the topic to where if you like the way the song and the singing sounds, like me, it's passable, Something like, it's good to know you fail sometimes, you try to see, but you're right offline. You could argue that that sounds pretty generic, but, you get the point of the song. It's a pretty simple message, and it's uplifting. And, for me, when something sounds good and it's uplifting and it has great drumming, me being a drummer, I'll take it. I'm likely to give it a break on being critical on the lyrics when the drumming is great and I like the songs. If the lyrics were very negative and depressing, I might feel a little bit different about it. So then my final critique is that the arranging seems a bit off in a couple of songs. This is just my opinion. I've never heard anyone else point this out. It could be seen as filler, I suppose, in some moments. I think it's noticeable on Celebrate Mistakes with a couple of instrumental parts that just seem to kind of drag on a little bit. It would be understandable if there was one instrumental section, but there's two separate instrumental sections, both that are decently lengthy. At the end of On and On, the singer just repeats, "Could you lead me on?" over and over again for a decent amount of time, with not much else happening. Then there seems to be one too many sometimes interludes in Get Up. All three of these songs are great songs, among my favorite songs on the album. And the parts really don't bother me that much, other than, I'd say the part that bothers me the most out of those three would be the ending of On and On. For a sizable portion of time, I think like 20, 30 seconds, he just says, "Could you lead me on?" over and over again. Kind of an underwhelming, sudden way to end the song that didn't seem to make a lot of sense. But like I said, uplifting lyrics, pretty positive guitars, just the guitars sound great. Pretty melodies. I dig the singer's voice. I dig the drumming. So, to me, this is just such a great band that I can overlook stuff like that, and at the same time, it makes me understand why maybe they didn't get bigger. But especially when I'm drumming to the songs on my stream, I find the arrangements a bit off at times. Maybe the writing process was a bit rushed, or they were just trying to make songs a bit longer than they needed to be, or they felt like they needed to be longer. I personally love shorter songs. I think for bands like this, songs being 2 minutes and 45 seconds to like 3.5 minutes, that's just about a perfect length for this kind of music. So yeah, overall, I really love this album. I'd say it's their catchiest by far. They only did 2 albums as a band, and the rest of the Number One Gun albums, after their first 2 releases, were the vocalist Jeff Schneewie's solo project. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that name right. Jeff Schneeweis. They were Jeff Schneeweis' solo project, which I also love. I mean, interestingly enough, on those albums, you know, the complexity doesn't really go down at all. He writes really interesting parts. Throw in some odd time signatures. The drumming's still good. So, yeah, you know, actually, I wouldn't have even really noticed unless somebody told me that. You definitely do notice a change in their sound. Something about this album that would stand out as compared to their other albums, it definitely fits in the most with kind of the stereotypical early 2000s emo sound, or whatever you want to call it. I like that. You know, I really liked that style of music, and I think that's why some people tried to write this album off a little bit. You know, when I say some people, maybe I'm not looking in the best places. A lot of my sources is coming from, like, punknews.org. If you look at the review there and look at the comments in the comments section, people are pretty harsh over there. You got a lot of punk fans, a lot of Bad Religion fans who are pretty critical of any band in this style of music. I definitely don't think they're generic. I really like the drumming, like I said. You know, the guitars, they're not reinventing the wheel, but some nice use of harmonics and pretty melodies and chord progressions. I like the singer's voice, though maybe the lyrics might be a bit simple at times. It's uplifting, it's positive, it sounds good. I enjoy it. That's just me, or it's not just me, it's a lot of people. This band deserves more recognition, man. I think this is a great album to start with, you know, being their first album. I definitely think I'm going to be reviewing their other albums down the line, as well as many other albums, guys. This is my first review. It's been a lot of fun, so yeah, to wrap it up, the other albums took some time to grow on me. That's what I'll say for now on their other albums, whereas this one kind of just spoke to me right away. And I was young, so, you know, maybe conforming a bit more to that early 2000s emo kind of sound is what helped get me hooked. The singing definitely conforms a bit more to the whole emo kind of sound than their other albums, but it's really the drumming that keeps things fresh and makes this band stand out from the crowd for me, as well as the uplifting, positive lyrics. You know, I'm not going to throw any bands under the bus, but some of the bands in this genre in that time period on the bigger labels, they were really kind of leaning on negative lyrics, and this is just, now that I do pay more attention to lyrics, it's just night and day for me, you know? Something that pulls you up, something that makes you feel good. So yeah, you know, whether or not you're a Christian, maybe that matters to you, maybe it doesn't. It's a Christian band. They ended up signing to Tooth and Nail Records, very big Christian label. It is what it is. I'm not really going to say much more about that. So yeah, guys, that's my first review. I'm going to be reviewing lots of early 2000s, quote-unquote, emo, post-hardcore, whatever you want to call it. I'm going to be saying that a lot because that's another video I'm going to be making, is kind of going over that whole thing, like what really is emo, because I listen to those bands too. You know, you got Mineral, Sunny Day Real Estate, Texas is the Reason, Penfold, Christie Front Drive. That's it, guys. I hope you enjoyed this review, and I will see you next time. Definitely check this album out, and if you like it, pick it up, man. Peace.